Thanks, Mike. My name is Keith Wiedenkeller. I'm the Chief People Officer for AMC Entertainment, otherwise known as AMC Theaters. Some of you may know who that is. We've got a couple of locations here in town. AMC's, just to put it into context, we've got about 380 theaters nationwide, about 20,000 employees. So we're not a huge employer, but we are a good-sized employer. And over the years, we've evolved a commitment to finding employment for people with disabilities. We've, in a quite natural and organic way, evolved to the place where literally, on an average, you could go to any of our theaters and you would find at least one person with visible or declared disability working on the staff. That has evolved over time to really kind of the concept that Mike was just talking about customized employment. A couple years ago, we started through a relationship with the Autism Society, wherein because of a program we developed called Sensory Friendly Films, which was developed actually to help families affected by autism be able to go to the movies. What you may not know is that many families who have a family member affected by autism are not able to go to a conventional movie theater because the bright lights, the loud noises, the low darkened environment is not conducive to many people on the autism spectrum. And so at some point we worked out the idea to change the way we did that and have a screening just for families affected by autism. The Autism Society helped us do that. It's been very successful and it's been a great program for us. That sprung into the idea of, since we're making efforts to employ people with disabilities at our theaters, can we not formalize that? And could the Autism Society not help us take that to the next level? And through a partnership with the Autism Society and with the local school district in Kansas City, where we're piloting the program, we've been able to develop a program we call FOCUS, which is, I know you guys like acronyms here in DC, so I'll tell you, that stands for Furthering Opportunities, Cultivating Untapped Strengths. So the idea is that we've formalized a program very similar to what Mike talked about, with the concept that when somebody's on the autism spectrum, it's not just about a job coach. There are barriers, especially in today's employment world. It's very common for employers to use online automated screening tools. And that's how you get your foot in the door in the application process. It was clear to us from the start, and we used one of those processes, and you almost have to. It was clear to us from the start that that wasn't going to be the best way to make sure that we were able to provide opportunity and level the playing field, particularly in this case for people on the autism spectrum. So we worked with the Autism Society and with our local school district to come up with some different ways to address the application process, to go through this process of getting past the evaluation process, so that our entire application, interview, onboarding process is customized for this situation. And what we've tried to do is to work toward customizing this so that it can be applicable for anybody with a disability, obviously not just geared toward people on the autism spectrum. The goal here all along has been very simply a real job at a real pay rate. We've never really looked at the idea that this would be a way for us to save money or to pay some sort of sub-minimum wage, or, and in fact, it's just the opposite. What many people don't seem to understand is that for an employer, and I guess Mike alluded to it a little bit, there are many benefits, and I'll say this: we're not here simply because of altruistic motivations. It's good for business. It is good for business, and in an employment situation, that's the best thing that you can have, something that's good for the employee and something that's good for the employer. Anytime it's too out of balance one way or the other, that's not going to be a good employment situation. So with the help of the Blue Valley School District in Kansas City and the Autism Society, we're able to work out this program. And what we found is that there are many benefits, both tangible and intangible, to both the employee and to us as a company. For one thing, customer perceptions are impacted by this. There are plenty of studies out there, and I can tell you from anecdotal evidence, And when a customer sees an employer that visibly they're able to see that this employer is helping to employ people with disabilities, that they have a more favorable reaction to that employer. And there's a recent study that shows that 92% of customers are likely to feel more favorably toward an employer that employs people with disabilities. And I can tell you also from an anecdotal and factual perspective at AMC, what we find is that the employees that we have that have some disability tend to be more dependable and better with the customers than our average employee. And then last but not least, from an engagement perspective, any HR person you talk to, and that's really what I am, despite the fancy chief people officer title, I'm the HR guy. Any employer that's in HR will tell you that what they are looking for is talent, and that what they're looking for is engaged talent. Engagement is more than just showing up. Engagement is what we call discretionary effort. It's that extra thing that somebody puts into their job when they come to work every day, like I'm sure many of you do every day. You get engagement by, there are 4 primary drivers to engagement. Well, 2 of those primary drivers are pride, being proud of your employer, and being proud to say, I work at AMC. And secondarily, advocacy. In other words, being willing to say, I think you should come to work at my employer. Well, those 2 drivers are very heavily impacted by programs like this, where people who don't happen to have a disability see what the company is doing and they say, wow, that makes me proud, it makes me feel good, it makes me feel like I'm a part of something more. There's a great book out, it's called 3 Signs of a Miserable Job, and one of the things that book talks about is that one of the things you want is you want your job to have relevance. And when your job doesn't have relevance, and that's one of the signs of a miserable job. Well, this helps us to create a situation where our jobs have relevance, where our people feel like we're making a difference. So I'd like to say that it is just the right thing to do. Of course it is the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do from a business perspective. You can look at programs like the Walgreens program at their distribution center in South Carolina, where 1/3 of their employees have a disability, and where they have developed programs and accessibility solutions based on that employment base that they've then taken and have implemented company-wide because it makes it better for everyone. So there are many tangible and intangible benefits, and that's why I think Mike is right. I don't think the barrier is necessarily the employer at large. We are willing to do this. We see this as a win-win situation, and our partnership with the Autism Society has certainly helped us to evolve that to the next level. So in summary, I'll just say that we think this is a concept that can work. It's certainly working for us at AMC, and we'd be happy to talk further with anybody who'd like to talk about it and see if we can make it work at other places.